Good afternoon and thank you for joining us. For the last 5 years, Granite North Television has partnered with the town of Littleton to present to its viewers a budget overview video. It's a video that details the warrant articles, the votes that are coming up, the spending for each of the departments, as well as the needs for each individual department. Generally, we sit down with each of the department heads and speak to them with the town manager as well as a select board member or two and the finance director, and we review the warrant articles as well as their budgets. This year, due to COVID-19, we chose to do things a little bit differently with our production. I went around to each of the department heads and filmed them at their location, and we talked about the warrant articles and their spending and their budget needs, but it was just myself and that individual rather than having a group of us in a single room. Our hope was to provide you with the same amount of information that we normally do, but unfortunately due to some transitional staff changes, we did not have a chance to speak with the transfer station director or the parks director. Those individuals were new to their roles, and we felt it was unfair to place them in front of a camera to speak about a budget and the warrant articles that they're still very new and becoming acclimated with. So those were omitted not by secrecy, but more just as a fairness to them to allow them to transition into their new role. We also did not have a chance to speak with the town manager. As you know, Town Manager Dorset has moved on from his role in Littleton, and at the time we didn't feel it was appropriate to place Mr. Bratz onto or in front of the camera to speak about his interim position, knowing that he's there to help move things in through the transition, not specifically make decisions for the town unless required to. We hope that this information is as useful as it is informative, and it has been very helpful for the last 4 years. This being our 5th year, we hope that you are prepared as you go into the vote in March.
So I'm here now with Adam Rezick, the new Opera House manager here in Littleton. Thank you for your time today, Adam.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. Now, you're new to this role, coming in to fill in for Sue Pilot, who has gone to part-time at this point.
Yes, so Sue's staying on, just in a different role with more reduced hours to help out and lend her expertise that she's gained over the years in the role. And I've taken over as the new Opera House manager and cultural arts coordinator.
Excellent. And I know you from years past in the music industry.
Right.
You are no stranger to this room.
No.
Two hosted Music on the Newsix
That's
that
right.
were rained out. But tell us a little bit about your background in music and how it's going to benefit the town moving forward.
Yeah, well, I've been a lifelong musician. I've been playing, recording, performing, writing in the North Country for the last 5 years. I also have a business background. I was a business major at St. Mike's in Vermont. And this is a fantastic opportunity to combine my educational and professional background in business and marketing fields with my passion, which is music and performance and arts and culture. It seemed like a perfect fit.
Wonderful. And that music as a business it's a beast in and of itself.
It
so
is.
Understanding both sides is certainly going to help the Opera House moving forward.
Yeah.
The Opera House operations, Article 9, actually has a vote to raise and appropriate $104,511, $36,000 of which is going to come from special revenue funds, and then the other $68,000 will be from taxation. It has a tax impact of 0.091 cents on the thousand. Last year, you didn't have the revenue coming in. I know that it wasn't in your role. Certainly was out of Sue's purview to see COVID coming, but there was a reduction in income. And because of that, this year's appropriations that they're asking for is about $30,000 over last year's expenditures. Do you think that in time, as COVID subsides and getting new opportunities in here, you're going to be able to make up that difference?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is just a blip on the radar. Really, if you look at the overall trend going back to when Sue took over the position a few years ago, it's just been nothing but up. And really, we were on track, we as the Opera House were on track under Sue's guidance in this past year to increase our revenues even more and really reduce the tax burden on the taxpayers here in Littleton. And I have no doubt that once this is all behind us, we're going to pick right back up where we left off. And in the meantime, I'm trying to get creative and come up with some ways that we can do some socially distant or otherwise have performances and events and revenue streams for the Opera House, even in spite of COVID.
Of those events, do you have any that are in the development phase that you want to talk about and share now, or you want to keep them secret for those that may be looking forward to it?
I'm going to keep them just to myself for the sake of not making false promises, but yeah, I've got some ideas to at least boost the marketing potential of the Opera House in the meantime.
And again, going back to my understanding of your history and working with you outside of this position, you're no stranger to good ideas. So I'm looking forward to seeing how those pan out.
I've had my fair share of not so good ones either as well, but yeah, ideally the ratio is more good than bad. Yeah. And I think in my time working on musical projects and events within the town, certainly gotten a lot of the kinks out and learned a lot of the inner workings of what it takes to put on a successful event and just create an environment in the Opera House for the potential that it has, which is just to be the cultural epicenter of the North Country.
Very nice, very nice. Now, obviously there's a lot of new systems and new infrastructure that Sue had brought in. Article 15 talks about additional Opera House improvements, and there's a raise and appropriate vote for $15,000, which has a tax impact of 0.02 cents on every thousand. You want to talk a little about the projected projects for systems and upgrades that you're looking to do?
Absolutely. We've got a few things in mind, one of which is the main doors in the Opera House. The doors leading from the parking lot ramp, they're really old. Over time, they've kind of settled and gotten crooked. They don't close properly. You got to close them shut annually sometimes, depending on which one you open. If you ever enter the Opera House, please go through the right door, not the left. I put a sign up.
I followed that today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so that just really boils down to letting heat out the building in the cold months.
Right.
So something as simple as that can really have
which goes back to another expenditure.
Exactly, goes back to it increases our heating bill. So just by a one-time expenditure of updating those doors, we can start to see some savings on our heating bill there. We also are pretty desperately in need of a refurbished floor and stage in the Grand Hall. So that's another priority of mine. This is trying to take advantage of this downtime where we can't really have public performances to just soup up a performance space so that once that time comes or COVID's behind us, we can start having bands in here and performances with our beautiful new sound system.
Right, and the rigging,
lights and rigging that are going to be coming in soon. I unload a pallet today with some of the lighting stuff.
That's awesome.
That will have this be the belle of the ball, as beautiful as it can be, and really set us up for success in hosting those larger scale, higher quality events.
Excellent. And lastly, on the warrant this year is Article 41, which is a little out of your area of expertise coming in after Sue. However, there is discussion of discontinuation of the Opera House Management Commission.
Right.
What's your thoughts on that, having read it? And again, coming in really more as a citizen, more than a worker at this point with your perspective,
right.
But what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's important to note that the objective is to discontinue it in the more like executive capacity. I still very much want to have a group of citizens who care about the Opera House, who have experience with it, who have a background with it, who have a stake in it, which is all of us in Littleton and the North Country in general. But the Opera House Commission in its official state was established prior to the existence of the Opera House manager position. So they existed to help fulfill a lot of the kind of clerical roles of what the Opera House manager has evolved to fulfill, and then some. So once Sue came along in the Opera House manager role a few years ago, it kind of negated the necessity for the Opera House Commission.
Right.
And there hasn't really been activity with it since. So it's more of just kind of a clerical thing, checking something off that doesn't necessarily exist to serve the same purpose it once did.
Right. Well, there was a need.
There was.
And now with management filling that role for, this is, I believe, the third year that management, maybe even the fourth.
I think it's the fourth. I think Sue was here 3 years before.
Yeah, so there's been a slow decline in the necessity of them to be there to be the steward of the place.
Right.
And Sue brought that up at the deliberative session, and she talked at length about it, which is available actually online at Granite North Television. We streamed it live. It's there if you want to check it. It's about the 3.5 hour mark. So, I kid, I'm not sure where it is. But she talked about how they did a fabulous job with helping to manage and bring it up. But it's kind of like, we're not really needing it
Right,
because
yeah,
we have a day-to-day individual taking care of those things.
Yeah, there's no underhanded or like backroom. It's just like it had a very specific purpose and it filled it wonderfully. And the purpose, the need just doesn't really exist anymore as a result of the management position.
Hence a discontinuation or a dissolving, not an excommunication.
Right. In fact, we've received letters of support from
Wonderful.
several of the members of that commission. So it has the blessing of many involved.
Excellent. And though not on here, this is a little side bender. I'm pleased to be working with you for the Cultural Arts Commission. I'm glad that you're stepping in with that. There's a lot of great things coming down the road with that.
Very excited about
Don't
that.
have a lot of time now to talk about it, but Adam is going to be helping to fulfill the role that a lot of us have put together over the last few years for the Littleton Cultural Arts Commission. So great things planned for that in the months to come.
Lots of outdoor stuff this summer.
Yes. So
yeah, hopefully.
Well, Adam, this is great. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, both outside and here. And congratulations on the new role here at the Opera.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Thank you. Great job. Thanks. Well, I'm here now with Megan Carr, the director or head librarian? Or
Director
of the Littleton Library. Megan, thank you for your time today. I know you got no articles this year, so there's nothing really to talk about as far as the warrant. However, you do have a proposed budget moving into 2021, $29,222, which is just about $8,000 over your 2020 expenditures. But your 2020 expenditures brought you through COVID. So, I mean, there's a lot that you're looking to kind of coordinate to get through. You had mentioned off camera a little bit about health insurance, some of your costs there.
Yep.
So, tell me a little bit about what you're looking to for 2021 in moving forward with your budget.
So obviously our major increases, not that they're super major, were around health insurance. The costs went up, and that's seems to be the way it goes these days. And with a small staff, those numbers can feel bigger. Even though.
It's harder to see small change like that not affect a small staff.
Yeah.
So I can see how, how many staff members are you currently with right now, full-time and part-time?
We have 4 full-time and 3 part-time.
Okay, so it is quite small compared to, say, in a fire department or a police department or so forth. So.
Yep, so it's, in a larger department, a minor change wouldn't have the same effect as it would on, a smaller department like ours, at least percentage-wise.
Exactly.
Yep.
Now, COVID, you had to shutter for quite a while. You would talk a little bit about how 2020 was for you behind closed doors.
COVID was, unprecedented, and it completely sort of upended our operational model. So back, what was it, when Governor Sununu issued the stay-at-home order, we had to...
March 14th, 12th, in that area,
Yep, with the school closure, we went to curbside only, and then when Sununu said everybody go home, we, sent everyone to do remote, and we, again, completely changed our operational model. We went full digital. We boosted our digital resources. We added Hoopla, which is more ebooks, audiobooks, but also movies, TVs, shows, and music. Did a lot of outreach with the schools, so we handed out books at the lunch drop-offs and craft kits, and sort of we're just trying to, engage with our, patron base and help people connect to each other in different ways. Nice. We produced a ton of videos. And then later in the spring, we migrated to Zoom story times, which Angie is still doing right now.
Very nice.
Which is good.
That's awesome. Now, obviously, as we kind of turn the corner, put COVID behind us, or at least temporarily so, we've got stuff that is changing. Spring is opening up. I'm sure you've got a few new programs that you're looking to maybe open back up that you used to have, or start fresh?
Yeah, I mean, so this fall we were able to start outdoor programming again before the case rates spiked again, and we had a really wonderful Di-November. And as things warm up again, we're hoping to get back outside. We were able to use the parks and the Dells to do, outdoor massed events with kids, which was really nice to see people again, and we're hoping that with warmer weather we can get back out there again.
How was attendance with that? Do you feel like it was a successful event, even though they're mixed COVID? People are getting out. They're anxious
really
to do
steady.
stuff.
everyone is just anxious to have a thing and to bring their, they don't, like whatever requirement we had, they were going to follow it because they needed that thing to do, you know?
There's only so many TV shows you can watch on your couch before
and
it
while digital is great, the human connection is
it's
really important to maintain.
As far as looking forward to 2021, other opportunities or equipment, things that you're looking to break out new for the community?
Well, we're hoping to do, as I said, more outdoor programming. That way, which will unfortunately be weather dependent, but it's easier to accommodate any changes in the current environment. So we have some garden themed ones coming up for, I want to say April.
Nice.
And then our summer reading program, which is all ages. We have stuff for kids through adults to take part in. So we'll add those in.
Nice. And I'm sure it'll be nice to see a lot more of the tourists coming back and enjoying the Pollyanna statue and coming inside and taking a look at the great library that we have here. So.
Yep, we're hoping to limited access again soon, and then we'll see what happens with vaccinations, with the world, and hopefully we can have more normal
Wouldn't that be nice?
Operations. Because again, we were able to reopen for a significant chunk of the summer and fall. But it was different. It wasn't the hangout place anymore. It was come grab your stuff, use the computer and head back out.
Different atmosphere when you're just stopping by as opposed to coming in and really utilizing the resources.
We're sort of the living room of the town, so we'd like to get that back.
Well, thank you very much for kind of elaborating a little bit how 2020 was for you and what we're looking to do. We look forward to seeing you with your doors open again here.
Yes,
awesome.
Me too.
Thank you, Megan. Appreciate it. All right, well, with me now is Chief Paul Smith from Littleton Police Department. It's good to see you again. This is, I think, our 4th or 5th year doing this together, and almost 30 years on the force here in Littleton.
About 28, yeah.
28, coming up on a big 3-0, so we thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Your budget this year is pretty much flat from last year. On the line items, it is about $150,000 over the expenditures, but with everything that goes into it, you're looking, dollars to dollars, like $150 difference as far as what you expected to pay out and what you're asking for this year.
Correct.
So you got some new officers, you got some new equipment, but COVID wrenching everything in that process. So it's hard to really compare apples to apples, looking at last year to this year. Moving right to the articles themselves, there's one right off the bat, Articles 6, 7, and 8 with the parking meters. I know at the deliberative session there was a little bit of confusion, I guess. Could you explain a little bit about how those work?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me back.
Excellent.
We try to provide probably a very fiscally conservative budget, but we certainly want to meet the needs of the community and certainly keep the officers safe. So, I think our budget represents a 2.84% increase. However, some of those are, that number that you brought up is, and I'm not trying to vilify the contract, but it's contractual obligations that we have no control over.
And that's speaking to payroll and the unions?
Payroll and benefits.
Yep.
And we didn't anticipate that, did we?
We did not anticipate that.
I said benefits.
Yeah.
And certainly those officers and the men and women in the department deserve the benefits because they work hard and they love this community. However, there's a reimbursed part there of about $60,000 that goes back into my budget once I expend it, and that comes from the Department of Justice because we've assigned somebody to drug task force. Because we have a pandemic going on, we also have a drug epidemic and a mental health crisis, so we've had to retool for 2020, like you talked about. Training has always been a priority, and we'll continue to change the way that we do our training, but certainly give them the best and affordable training. As far as Articles 6, 7, and 8, yeah, I agree there was a little bit of confusion. Simply said, back in the 1947-49 time frame, the town established a warrant article creating parking meters, gave us the authority to enforce those parking meters, and created a fund, and out of that fund you would pay for the enforcement, you would pay for the repair of the meters, maintenance of the meters, and also some of those funds can be utilized for road maintenance, sidewalk improvements, parking improvements. And so all of these years up until probably 3 or 4 years ago, the fund's revenue neutral. It's funded specifically from fines and fees generated from parking enforcement, so there's zero tax impact. However, the budget is discussed during the budgetary process with the budget committee. It never showed up on the warrant until 3 or 4 years ago.
Yep.
And that's when the DRA said to the town of Littleton, all these special revenue funds that you have within your budget need to be on the warrant.
I see.
You can
that's why it
change them.
started
You
showing
can
up
change
for the
them from a
votes.
special revenue fund to a reserve fund. I think it's a reserve fund.
Yeah.
Revolving fund. I'm sorry.
Revolving, yeah. It's coming from a
revolving
reserve
fund,
to a reserve.
and then you don't have to have it on the warrant every year. It's still discussed through the process. It's still part of the overall budget, but it creates numerous extra warrants or articles on the warrant. So there were 4 or 5 different revenue funds like this. So rather than doing them all in 1 year and having like 50 or 60 warrant articles, the town elected to do one each year. For example, I think the transfer station was one, and where they switched the names. The funds don't change; they don't go anywhere. The use of the funds really doesn't change. So Article 6 says, "Hey, let's discontinue the revenue fund." Article 7 says, should we not pass Article 8, we're still going to have funds to operate parking enforcement.
So that's
for the year.
the catch net.
Yeah, that's the
the
catch
safety
net.
net.
Just like with I'm trying to think here. With a contract with a union.
Yep.
There's that extra article that says if this one doesn't pass, then we get to have a special town meeting. It's kind of the same thing. If we don't change this, or we eliminate this fund, and we don't pass the new fund, we need to somehow
find the funding
fund
somewhere.
Parking enforcement for a year until we can figure things out.
And that's where 7 comes into play.
Right.
So if 6 passes, we don't worry about 7. But if 6 fails, 7 will handle the fund, because 6 and 8 are tied together.
6 and 8 are tied together. So what we want ideally is Article 8. Everything's the same. The fund is run the same, and there's the same level of oversight. Just that we don't need to have it on as an article in the warrant every year.
And it's a revolving fund.
So it's created a revolving fund. So we've done 3 or 4 other funds like this previously. If you go back and you pull out your annual reports, you'll see that we've done this on several different years.
So it's not subterfuge. We're not trickery. It's just a matter of putting it into a process that's a little easier to manage based on DRA's specifics.
That's correct. It's a bookkeeping thing.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm glad you cleared that up. Thank you. Now, in talking about the parking meters, Article 19, we've got a big project ahead of us.
Sure.
There's a vote to authorize $100,000 for a 4-year lease agreement payable $25,000 per year. Again, no tax impact though, because it's going to be part of the parking meter scenario. And the goal is to replace all of them with debit and credit card enabled meters.
Absolutely. So the key is that this payment, it's going to be over a 4-year period. The funds to pay the payment would come out of the parking meter fund, again, not through taxation, but through fees and fines. But the most important thing is to improve our service to the customers that are parking in those parking spaces.
Right.
I know that there's some people that are opposed to having the meters altogether, but they are there. They're there to regulate the amount of time people park on Main Street, to rotate the parking.
Right.
And to help regulate. So with the meters in place, the current ones, there is no access to the internet. You cannot use a debit or a credit card in them. So these new meter heads give us the ability to securely and safely, so somebody can't hack into them, the ability to do debit cards, credit cards. They can still use coins. They can use, we'll have the same like park card system that we currently have, where you can come down, purchase a $20 card, keep it in your pocket, and pay whenever you're using the meters. And they're rechargeable.
Very nice.
It also has sensors on them. So currently, you pay for 2 hours worth of parking. You're only there for 5 minutes. You drive away. Somebody comes in. Now they've got an hour and 55 minutes of free parking, right? Good for you, for the person driving in. Bad for the town of Littleton.
Right.
We're losing some revenue.
Yeah.
So what this will allow is a sensor on each pole. Somebody pulls away. I'll stop. I'll start at sensor.
That's okay.
So
You drive away.
This allows for a sensor on each pole, and so it resets the meters, and they go back down to zero. It comes with a plethora of technology that gives parking enforcement the ability to tell if somebody paid with an app on their phone.
Oh, wow.
Because it will have that capability. So you can just roll up to the meter. If you have a Park Mobile app, you can pay for that parking space, and you don't even have to put a debit card or a credit card in
It's
the
already,
meter.
and it's anticipated that'll be available on rollout when they're installed, or is that
Yeah.
something that's
No,
in the?
That's why it's as much as it is. We wanted the Park Mobile capability to give people an app that they could use to utilize these meters and not have to use credit cards or coin. Also, Park Mobile is used in a lot of major metropolitan cities throughout the nation. So as obviously we're a destination community. Somebody's rolling up here, they have the Park Mobile app on their phone. It'll alert them and tell them, hey, Littleton's got Park Mobile, and these are where you can go and get and park. So, and Park Mobile allows us to expand our parking should we want to do that in other areas of the community.
What a great service. I mean,
Yeah.
it really brings us 21st century. And
Absolutely.
it's nice that you're rolling it all out at once rather than trying to, stair step it and get a little
Right.
bit of it and not missing out. Moving through the other two articles, you have Article 24 and 25. They're really kind of housekeeping articles. Your 24, Capital Reserve Fund, tax impact of 0.06 cents on every thousand. That's your $50,000 each year, but that's for the 3-year rotation of vehicles that you're purchasing.
So we're not purchasing another vehicle this year. Our capital plan is to, every 3 years, purchase 3 vehicles. What happens when we do that, it keeps our fleet newer. And as you and I discussed earlier, my repair line is
Yes,
going down. My
we've seen
maintenance
that.
lines are going down because,
Across all of the departments, actually.
right, because newer fleet, less repairs. Obviously, maintenance, you want to service your vehicles,
Right.
but that's routine maintenance. But the other stuff, we're not investing as much money in, and so it's safer and it's more economical for the community itself.
Certainly.
And so that 50,000 goes into the fund, and at the 3-year period, those funds come out to purchase our vehicles. And what you won't experience is a spike
Right.
in the budget.
As we talked about.
People
yeah.
don't like.
They'd like to see
They
it.
like to see it as
It's
flat
predictable.
as possible. It's very predictable.
You put it in there, you don't have to worry about it, you know it's there. Because if you
Right.
come into a tight year, such as a COVID scenario,
Right.
the last thing you want to do is scramble for funds to replace something that is dangerous to be driving on the road.
That's correct.
So, and then the last one, 24, that's the unexpected full and part-time police funds. Raise and appropriate $4,000. No tax impact because, again, that's part of the housekeeping. You put it there so we have it, and then we reimburse as
Right.
needed, if I understand that correctly.
Absolutely. So this was created at the advice of some great citizens that wanted to see our department part-time program expand without seeing a huge impact in the department, in the overall budget. So they felt this was a good, I guess, opportunity or a good way to fiscally start building our part-time ranks, but not have a huge impact. So what we do is in the permanent positions line, sometimes we might have some excess funds. Isn't because we over budgeted, it might be because we had an officer get done and there's like a 3 or 4 month lag between when that officer gets done and a new officer is hired, that we have some funds we didn't expend. So up to $10,000 we can take from that unexpended money only in the permanent positions line and put it in this part-time officer fund. The fund can never exceed $50,000. So in a few years we might only have to take $2,000 out of permanent positions because we've gotten to our $50,000 mark.
I see.
However, this warrant article will appear every year on the budget. On the warrant. However, the monies are very specific. They can only be spent for a part-time officer's training, equipment, or wages. We cannot use it to offset any other portion of the budget. So
it's not going to go to computers in your offices or tires on the fleet.
Right.
It's going to go towards that part-time officer's need to fulfill their role in duty as an officer.
Absolutely.
So it could be uniforms.
Could be
It
uniforms.
could be equipment for whether the cameras or their holster or
Body armor.
badges.
Also pays for their field training. It could pay for their wages. Eventually, if we get enough officers trained up, because there was a huge deficit, probably well over 10 years. One of my predecessors eliminated the part-time officer program. There was a lot of philosophical debate over the need for part-time officers. I've always felt that we need a good solid bench. And so I wanted to reinstitute the program, but without a huge spike to the budget.
Right.
So I felt that this was a very fiscally appropriate approach to starting that program back up without a huge tax impact, show the need for it, and then move past that. So this is our approach to that.
Nice. And you've brought up fiscally responsible, flat budget, eliminating spikes. Clearly, an understanding of how the budgeting process works for your department and the police department as a whole. And it showed, you're operating with a flat budget year over year from 2020 to 2021. And I know that the citizens thank you for both your service and your mindfulness when it comes to the budget. So,
Thank you.
Chief Smith, thank you very much for your time once again, and stay safe out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and we're here at the fire department now with our new chief, Michael McQuillan. Thank you for joining us today, Michael. And
thank you for coming in.
Chief, being new to the role, can you tell us a little bit about your previous experience that you're bringing to Littleton for this?
Absolutely. I've been in the fire service for about 30 years now. The last 27 of which I was in the town of Londonderry. Kind of came up through the ranks there as company officer, shift commander, and ultimately my last role was the operations chief, which was the deputy chief of operations pretty much. And kind of ran things there and had the opportunity up here kind of presented to me. I went through the process and loved the Littleton area, loved the North Country, and that's why I'm here.
Wonderful.
So
Wonderful.
kind of coming up here, one of the things when I started in Londonderry, I think we were very similar to Littleton. It was back in 1994 when I got hired there, 1993. And it was a smaller department back then, and we were doing about the same amount of calls that Littleton does here, and we actually had taken over the ambulance service back then.
Very similar scenario.
Exactly. I was one of the first paramedics to work in Londonderry, and kind of saw that through from day one until the day I left, something that, I was very proud of. And I think that gives me a little bit of an insight into, what's going on here with the ambulance service and hopefully moving this department forward with an ALS transporting service.
Very nice, very nice. Now, in looking at the budget, you got a proposed budget of 1.2 million, which is give or take about 11,000 under the expenditures from 2020. However, it's above the 2020 proposed. So there's a give and take. Obviously, it's a best guess scenario with, you do fiscal, conservative budgeting as
Correct.
needed, but with COVID, I'm sure there's been a lot that changed in 2020. So there was unexpected expenses.
Exactly.
So
and a lot of that comes down to a lot of the safety gear that we're wearing now. We didn't wear a year ago. Wearing all of the, if you will, the suits that we wear, the Tyvek suits, the goggles, and the N95 masks that the crews are wearing to protect themselves and the patient as well.
Certainly.
Those are all new to us, where we've always worn the safety glasses and the goggles. That level of protection to protect everybody from any of the viruses, whether it's the flu virus or coronavirus, that's new for us.
Right. And I'm sure there's, you get down to the dollars and cents, your sanitizer, your wipes, your gloves, you're using these things a lot more.
Yep.
Just because of the awareness that's going on in the pandemic that we're currently living through.
Exactly. One of the things we have is an electrostatic sprayer that actually, after calls, they will use to actually disinfect the back of the truck, which again, that's something new that we haven't had to do before, but that allows any of the viruses that are back there to be killed off basically, and the truck between each use is sanitized that way.
And I don't think anybody's going to argue with safety.
Correct. Yeah, I hope not, but I get it.
Yeah. So, but moving aside of politics,
yes.
The first article that you have that actually comes up in the warrant this year is Article 13, and it is the fire truck replacement. There's a vote to authorize the selectmen to enter a 5-year lease to raise and appropriate $120,000 for each of those 5 years.
Yep.
But the taxation impact is 16 cents on 1,000. But it's replacing a 25-year-old truck.
Yes.
Let's talk a little about the apples to apples of that scenario.
That's one of the things coming in, looking at the age of the fleet that's here and stuff, was a little bit concerning to me. One of the things, we had a great fleet in Londonderry. We had a great program to roll over the fire apparatus and bring in the new technology that comes with the fire trucks. The guys here have done a tremendous job of keeping up on the trucks and the apparatus that they have now. What I'll use as an example is the brine solution underneath the truck that really eats away the frame rails and stuff. These guys do a really good job of actually cleaning the trucks and rinsing that off and getting underneath that truck to keep that corrosion down to a minimum. You can't eliminate it altogether. So we do have some corrosion that's on there. We have some corrosion throughout the truck that's affecting some of the wiring harnesses. And that's one of the things with the truck. It's a 25-year-old truck. One's 23, one's 27, but the safety aspect that goes with that truck that you get in your cars that you buy now, and even the fire trucks they sell, we haven't had that for the last 20 some odd years. It's rollover protection. It's the safety restraint system for the seat belts. These guys have the buckling systems, but they don't have the up-to-date. They don't have the crash protection zones. So for them rolling out the door, just the safety that they don't have that they get with a new truck is, as a fire chief, that's one of the things that's concerning for me. The other factor is that when they arrive on scene, that new technology that exists today that lets them do their job quicker and more efficient, they don't have that right now. Looking at even just the simplest fire, where we have what we call a pump operator, and it's someone that's assigned to the truck to run the truck. They don't have a pressure governor on this truck, which means that any water spikes that come in from whatever the reason is that comes into that truck gets passed on through that hand line and can do damage to either the truck itself or can do damage to the people that are actually operating the end of that hose line.
I was going to say the injuries. As that flood comes through there. So.
Yep, that's a mandate that's been a requirement for fire trucks for years now. Is they have to have that governor that prevents that from happening, so that when that kick comes through, the truck doesn't rev up and pass that on to the rest of the operating firefighters. It actually dumps it through the truck. That's just one of the examples of the safety that's built into the truck that makes it easier for them to operate on the scene.
And I'm sure that there's many other safety parameters that will help out, but more to the point, when we start talking about budget as a whole, one of the decreases on the overall budget for the town itself is the lack of repairs on vehicle maintenance.
Yes.
And in talking with Chief Smith earlier, and I'm assuming the same is going to be when we talk with Doug, when you replace the trucks, you're going to see your maintenance repair bills are going to go down. General service repairs are one thing, but you're not fixing corrosion problems.
Correct.
You're taking care of them.
Yep.
So you actually save money in the long run by getting into a replacement cycle.
Yes. And I believe right now, just on one of the engines alone last year, we spent about $30,000 on repairs for the truck, which is more than what the truck's actually worth. And as I'm replacing the pump on it this year, I'm looking at probably spending the same amount this year to keep that truck running. which is why a new truck would be helpful, because it will reduce that quite a bit, because the pump has corrosion that's in it. The pump packings and the gaskets that are in the valves, they're worn. The truck has been used a lot. And it's the life cycle of the pump. It starts to fail, it starts to fall apart. We need to rebuild it, and that's a cost of $15,000 to $20,000 to do, which is normal for the life expectancy of the truck, where the age that it's at, but it's not worth the money to put into it, because the truck isn't worth that anymore.
It's going to be difficult to put that money in, knowing that you're kind of hand-tied.
Yes.
But a truck like this would really alleviate a lot of those problems on the road.
It would.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the insight on that. The other article that shows up, Article 23, the Fire Department Reserve Funds for $1,000. That's no tax impact. That's kind of a housekeeping line item, just so the fund continues to exist.
Yes.
Is this one that's similar to the police department, where your specific buckets of how that money can be used in moving forward?
Yeah, this is one that, for the fire department, we have a lot of equipment here that people don't see that it's in the trucks for, if you will, rope rescue, for heights rescue or below grade rescue, even vehicle rescue tools. Those tools, just in their nature of being rescue tools for life-saving, make them very expensive. The airbags that I have on the trucks, their life expectancy is coming to an end soon. And those are the ones that are used when a vehicle rolls over. They stabilize the vehicle, they can lift it off a patient and stuff. To replace those, it's about $15,000 to $20,000 to get a new airbag system in.
Oh, I was going to say per bag, or
no,
for the system?
That's for the whole system.
But that's within one truck?
One truck, yep, and that's just one set of airbags that goes with that. Same thing with the radios that we have in the trucks. They're all at the end of their life expectancy, and they're not supported anymore, meaning there are no new parts being manufactured for them anymore. If I can get them off the shelf to replace them, then that's good, but if I can't, then I have to buy a new one. And the radios that go in the truck are about $6,000 a piece. The ones that the firefighters use, they're portable radios, which is kind of like their lifeline to be able to transmit a mayday, or say that there's something going on inside the building that they need help to get out, or to call into the dispatch center to say that they need another alarm. Those ones are about $4,000 a piece. So when you start multiplying those out, it becomes big cost items.
Certainly.
But if I have a capital reserve that we build that I can keep money into, when I need to use that money, I can go before the Board of Selectmen and just ask to withdraw $20,000 to buy new rescue tools that we need, because the other ones are failing.
And then it doesn't come up on a warrant.
Correct.
The questions are asked ahead of time through the selectmen, who
Correct.
have been elected to make decisions on behalf of the town. So
Correct.
It really expedites the process
It
for
does.
you,
Yep.
knowing that these life-saving tools need to get in-house as quickly as possible.
Correct. And again, it keeps that account for us that we can monitor, and it's not a huge spike increase to the tax rate again. It hopefully will help to keep that stable by being able to come up with whatever the set number is going to be every year to put into that, to keep that balance, at a level that we can use it to buy the equipment that we may need.
Nice. Well, Chief McQuillan, thank you very much. Welcome to the budget review. This is your first one.
It is.
As I promised, it is pretty painless.
I appreciate that.
On behalf of the town of Littleton and the residents, we thank you for your time and look forward to a great year and a great future here together in Littleton.
Excellent. Me as well. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming in and doing this with me.
Excellent. Thank you. And we're here now at the Public Works Department with our Public Works Director, Doug Damko. Doug, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Another year for the budget review meeting. In looking at your proposed budget, you're about $210,000 over the 2020 expenditures. However, it's only $9,500 above your proposed budget from last year. So you're looking to operate on a relatively flat, but you didn't spend as much. I'm certain that a lot of that has to do with the COVID and expenditures and not getting stuff done. Do you want to take a moment to explain that?
Sure, yeah, I appreciate you asking me that question. It's important to know just how our budgets work. We got the phone ringing.
Let's pause on the phone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's okay.
Tyler Drummer, I don't know who that is. Yeah, and I can't even turn it off. I just gotta
okay.
let it go through.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll start again, just so it's clean. Yep. We're here now at the Public Works Department with Public Works Director Doug Damko. Doug, thank you for joining us again.
Glad to be here.
This is our second year working together for the budget review video, I guess is the best way to say it. In looking at your proposed budget, you're looking at 1.209, which is about $210,000 over the 2020 expenditures. However, when you look 2020 proposed to this year, they're relatively flat. You're like $9,000 over last year's proposed budget. Can you talk a little bit about why the funds weren't? I'm sure COVID has a part with it, but there's a lot moving on in there. Talk to me a little bit about your expenditures from 2020 and moving forward to 21.
Sure, definitely. Just in general, for our department, we've run a fairly flat budget year to year. There hasn't been a lot of changes. We've had basically small increases, probably from employee, slight cost of living adjustments, that kind
Certainly.
of thing. But 2020 was very different for us with COVID.
Yeah.
And actually COVID and a couple other things too. Our COVID, we had a couple vacancies in employees.
Okay.
That actually carried and extended through the year. We had some seasonal employees that we didn't hire that we normally do.
And those can leave a large deficit when you start talking payroll.
We had 1.6 full-time equivalents for vacancies.
Oh, wow.
So that's more than 1.5 positions.
Yeah, and that'll add up very fast.
And those are permanent positions.
Yeah.
And then we had the seasonal folks that we didn't hire. These are all part of our department's efforts to try to keep our costs down in case COVID was going to have a negative impact on our budget.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you kind of breaking that down a little bit. I know it came up at deliberative, and
Yeah.
I think qualifying and explaining it a little bit further here will be helpful.
Well, I do have another piece of that too, because
Excellent.
Our department did do a pretty substantial warrant article project, which was eligible for payment from the warrant article itself. So our department actually received some offsetting funds.
Oh, that helps too.
Doing a warrant article project.
Nice, nice. So
the combination of those two things really added up to that savings in our budget for
over
2020.
$200,000 worth, which is
Right.
a good amount of savings. But it doesn't negate the need that still exists,
No,
which is why the budgets are still relatively
Right. In fact,
similar.
we're back to full staff now. We've filled
Yep.
those vacancies.
So back up and
So we're
showing.
ready for 2021 to be a strong year of just regular public works service.
Certainly, and there's a lot of work to do out there. In looking at the articles themselves, there's 3 or 4 of them on there this year for public works. The first of which, Article 11, the street. Let's try that again.
Yeah.
The street sweeper, and I had a chance to look at that with you during one of our budget review meetings that we held here, and we did some video footages, and I'll probably put that over in here, but. You're looking at a 3-year lease, $291,000 over those 3 years. It's a lease purchase at $97,000 for the first and then subsequent years. $30,000 of which is going to come from the sewer fund. So they're not covering the whole cost. The tax impact on that is 0.09 cents per thousand. Those same payments, $67,000 in the second and third year as well. Obviously, the street sweeper, it speaks for itself when the folks will see the video footage, but do you want to talk a little about the need itself?
Oh, by all means. And this is something that came up through the budget meeting hearings too, just us having to explain the high usage that we have for that sweeper. It's the town's owned a sweeper since the 1950s, and we've used it extensively, at least twice a year for major street sweeping. We use it for downtown, higher level service. We use it for cleaning out catch basins. So it's a heavily used piece of equipment, and ours is 19 years old.
Wow.
The thing, we have it in light duty right now because it's in such poor condition.
Yeah, and we've seen it, the leaks, the cracks, the weld marks,
Right.
and the repurposing and trying to fix
We
it.
put a lot of money into it too
Yeah.
to keep it going for 19 years.
Sunlight coming through in areas you're not supposed to see.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, that's one of the things with some of the new sweepers that we're looking at. We're looking for something with stainless steel body,
Corrosion
on it.
free,
So
yep.
actually trying to get a better sweeper than what we currently have.
Nice, and that's certainly just a testament to the work that you guys do around here. It doesn't end seasonality. You're out there, you're plowing,
Yeah.
you're salting, you're sanding, you're putting stuff down. Well, come spring, you got to pick it all back up. A lot of that sand it's got to come back in.
Leaves in the fall.
Yep,
And,
in the
all
catch
the-
basins
yeah.
and clean them out, and the culverts, and it all goes to the general maintenance, because if they don't get cleaned, now you got sewer problems, and if that gets
Yeah.
if you don't clean up the streets, then you've got potholes and corrosion problems. So one begets the other. So
Yeah.
the street sweeper is going to become a crucial part of that puzzle to make
Yeah.
sure that things are maintained. Another element of that puzzle, Article 12, your 1-ton multi-purpose truck. An $87,000 purchase, and that's an outright purchase, no lease associated with that.
but 30,000 of it will come from FEMA funds. So you're looking at a $57,000 from taxation, tax impact of 0.76 cents on 1,000. Talk to me a little about some of the uses. It says multi-purpose. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. That truck is typically been used just for on call outs when we need to go out, call out and take care of trees that are down, loaded with chainsaws and equipment that we need to go out on calls like that. We use it for just going out and reviewing projects and things going on out in the field. It's our lightest duty truck, so it's a plow truck, but it's not used as a primary plow truck.
It's much better than bringing a six-wheeler out to go on a call to see a tree down. So.
Right. So it is somewhat of an administrative truck. We have a new fleet mechanic that we hired, and we're looking to have it. One of the new functions of it is to be a mobile mechanic.
Oh, wonderful! So
truck.
if something
so we
happens,
put a utility bed on it and actually have it more set up for the mechanic to go out and do service calls for our equipment.
Very nice. And a notable place to mention this for your department, we mentioned it with the other two that have fleets as well, police and fire. There's a marked decrease in the budget this year in vehicle maintenance across the board. And that's a testament to the program that all three departments have established in that rotating the vehicles out. And we talked about it with the fire truck with Chief. We talked about it with the police cruisers with Chief. And those ideas of bringing those vehicles in newer so you don't have to spend all that money on maintenance. I mean, bringing in a new multi-purpose truck that can go out to service as needed is going to help with the overall budget cost, bringing those repairs down. So it's nice to see that multi-purpose truly has repairs in mind, and it's not just going out and checking on lots and culverts and stuff. So it's great. That's great.
It's also set up for plowing, so it'll have a plow on it and it can salt. So that's all the multi-purpose functionality it's going to have.
Yeah, it's the Swiss Army knife for the public works. So, in looking at the next article for the Public Works, the parking improvements. There's a large project with Article 14 looking at the parking lots overall. There's a couple of them that were identified, and we can show those slides. But $150,000, and that would involve design, repair, the construction, all of it coming from taxation with a tax impact of 0.21. Sorry, I don't want to say that incorrectly. Not 21 cents, but 201 cents per thousand. The parking lots themselves, obviously there's a couple of them that have been identified. Would you like to talk about those a little bit?
By all means. Well, let me start with the parking plan.
Certainly,
that's the driver for this whole
and that came from last year, I believe.
Correct.
Isn't that?
It was adopted in 2019, actually.
Oh, okay, so 2 years back.
I believe so.
Okay,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was right when I came on board working for the town. So I just started to get familiar with the town's parking lots, and I sat a little bit in on the parking committee as they were working through that plan, just to familiarize myself with it. And so now, really, I've been tasked to look at projects that are implementing that plan. And really, one of the big ones is trying to increase parking.
Right.
And so part of the project is to try to increase parking in the Jax Jr. parking lot.
Right. I saw that, and that was a slide that they showed at the deliberative session. And there's a center column on both of those in that L-shaped parking lot area, which would add a third row. And would there be meters in there, or is that still going to be maintained, or is that still to be determined?
That's still be determined, yeah. This project isn't funding.
No, this is about the asphalt and the build-out. I gotcha.
Reconfiguring it. There's that barn there that the town owns that would need to be removed, so that's going to be part of it.
And that comes into part of that. The Article 14 does authorize the town to use the said funds to acquire, lease, swap land easements and buildings without further town vote to seek grants or donations, etc., to fund the project. So I'm certain that there's funds available out there. The town has been great in years past to find offsetting funds or different grants that are available to fund the project to ease that tax burden on the citizens. But by putting the authorization for the select board to move forward, to acquire what's needed to get the job done, a little bit less red tape down the road, I guess, is probably the best way to place that.
Right. It's just to get all those authorizations up front here so the town has the maximum flexibility to pursue funding.
And position on opportunity, too. If something should come up, you can move on it without having to wait for a special meeting to come forth. So.
Exactly.
Excellent.
So
And then moving from those parking improvements, we talk about other, infrastructure and public works projects with Article 21, the infrastructure improvements. There's a vote to raise and appropriate $300,000 to the purpose is to repair and replace the roads, streets, sewer, sidewalk, pretty much to fund your projects. Yeah, this is the one that helps you get the jobs done that need to be done, whether it be identified streets, culverts, different systems for the sewer. The $300,000, all of it is from taxation, which is 0.40. Again, I'm doing it again. I apologize. 0.401 cents on the thousand, and it's a non-lapsing appropriation until 2026. Or until the projects are completed, and that gives you that window to because there's process, there's grant funding. You gotta do the surveying, you gotta go out, and you gotta make sure that everything's in. Talk to me about a couple of the ones that you hope to get done early in the process.
No, yeah, by all means. In fact, typically this warrant article is primarily focused on road paving.
Okay.
Most commonly.
Certainly.
And when we go to look at a road for doing some road paving improvements, we will look at the drainage system, we will look at the sewer. And that's why in sidewalks, that's why we kind of include all those items in there, so that
just in
work
case
needs to be done on any of those things, it can be included.
Well, I think it's fiscally responsible. If you're going to put a road down, you don't want to dig it all up to fix the sewer later. Right. You want to fix it all at once. Take care of it from the ground, deep ground underneath, and work your way up, beautify it in the process, and then you can maintain that road for the years and years to come. You don't have to. Hopefully, you're taking care of the thoughts of the curb cuts. You're putting them in early. You're anticipating the growth in the area, so you've got the sidewalks at the right widths, so you don't have to go out and re-pour more concrete and move curbing.
Yep,
so
the whole idea.
Nice.
And as everybody knows, when you cut into a road, you just created some new openings for water.
Oh yeah,
and that's just the beginning of the downward spiral.
Exactly.
When you start getting cracks in your cuts in your pavement. So,
and then a good street sweeper that can clean it all up in the springtime, so that it's not sitting there and festering, clogging the drain. So,
in terms of projects, I have been working on that. Some of it's carryover from last year. We're already planning ahead and kind of looking down the road.
Nice. Now,
in terms of what we want to do.
Reflecting on 2020, I'm certain there's a handful that you wished that you could have got done.
Yeah.
Are they rolling over to the top of the list this year so that you can take care of them?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, in 2020, we had one project we really wanted to put some money towards, and that was the Industrial Park Road. And we weren't able to do that because it ended up being a pretty large project, and because of just some of the other roads being a little more of a higher need.
But
so again, we're gonna try to put some money into Industrial Park Road this year. And
very nice.
It won't be a comprehensive work because of the limited budget. With $300,000, it's going to be selective in terms of what we can do.
But you do a level of triage. You figure out exactly where the needs are, and then you spend those in. And if you need to move something up the ladder, you have the flexibility to do so.
So we do have 3 roads. We have Industrial Park Road, we have Reddington Street, and we have Richmond Street.
Nice.
That we're looking at. Those 2 that are over more in the Apthorpe area.
Okay. Yep.
I've had a lot of citizen feedback and just driving those roads. I drive around town and I try to take notes on what I see as I go. I get feedback from the highway
both
crew.
The mental note and the physical note, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Well, it's good. I think
the highway crew is great. Those guys are out on those roads year round, and they know.
And this is the time of year where we start to really see the swelling of the it's.
Yeah,
the frosty is pushing up.
Are really helpful when it comes to
absolutely
future projects.
Nice, very nice.
So that's the plan for that warrant article for this year.
Excellent. So Reddington, Richmond, and Industrial Park.
Right.
Excellent. And moving on, we look at a housekeeping article, Article 22, which is your capital reserve. This year it's $1,000, no tax impact. But as mentioned with the other departments with the capital reserve fund, this really is a placeholder so that you can approach the selectmen for that money because you've got it there. It doesn't become a warrant article or a special vote or anything that happens. It gives you the money as quickly as you need it. Am I right on that?
Correct. Yeah, it's basically our vehicle savings account.
Nice.
And it all ties to our, and you'll have some of the slides on that, I'm sure,
Yep.
to our to the vehicle replacement plan.
Yeah, a very comprehensive
that I put
plan that I've
together
seen.
for-
Yeah,
for
20-year
our
plan, and it's huge. And you have a 10-year out to 2029,
Yeah.
so that they're really, I mean, barring a tragedy accident or something where there's a collision, you know what trucks are going to be removed from that fleet, sold off, or leased, or
Cycled
purchased
out,
back in.
Yeah.
But I'm certain that I have not looked at it extensively, but which trucks that have the plows, the attachments, and the apparatus that are going to need to be repaired, sanders versus the sweeper. I mean, that's a
it
very
covers
powerful
everything.
tool.
Well, and you had hit on something earlier, which is very important. You don't want to. You want to replace your equipment at an optimal time. You don't want to
Right.
run it until it's worth almost nothing.
Yep.
There's actually a trade-off where you get a good trade-in value for it that can help offset a purchase of a replacement.
Exactly.
So the idea of that plan was to get a definite cycle in place for our whole fleet of equipment.
Nice. And that
And that's what
plan's
we've been working on. We
yeah.
started it last year, and the Warrant article for the vehicles for this year are based off that, and it's going to hopefully continue on.
Right, certainly.
And the goal is to set aside money. So in years where there isn't a lot of need,
Put a little bit more
back.
back.
We're going to ask for money to go into that capital reserve to
Nice.
help offset for when the next need comes up.
And it all goes to that fiscally responsible budgeting, keeping those flat budgets because you're anticipating years ahead. It's
Yep.
that proactive, not reactive,
Exactly.
which I think really helps the citizens to be both informed at what the trajectory is, as well as the departments knowing what's coming up and how they need to plan for the future moving forward. So that's great. That one closes out the public works, but with Brian Patno moving on from the transfer station in his department, there's been some changes, and there is Article 16 talking about the burn pit closure, and from our conversation prior, transfer station actually now falls under some of your department.
Correct.
So can we talk a little about that transition and how that is wrapped in transfer station with Public Works and the burn pit specifically?
Sure. Yeah, definitely, by all means. I've worked in and around Public Works, a good majority of my career, and it's almost standard that solid waste is under the Public Works operations.
Nice.
It's very common.
So moving that here is not unheard of.
It was perfect sense with Brian, leaving for a new opportunity. And having somebody new come on board, it was a great opportunity to make that change.
And then
So-
you're not going to be divided. You're going to have an assistant working over there.
Sure, of course.
And Steve, was it? Is that
Yep.
okay?
Steve
So
was,
Steve's going to be pulling in on that. And he'll help oversee a lot of the day-to-day.
He will.
But the transfer station itself and the operations and budgeting, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
that'll fall to you and your desk.
Yeah, and I'll work with him on it as well. Steve,
Yep.
So
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's,
when he sees that a compactor is going down, he'll talk with you, and you guys will make a plan for the
Yeah.
future to take care of that.
yeah,
Nice.
and I'm already trying to get all the different functions of Public Works to kind of coordinate together. We
Right.
have highway, we have fleet now,
Mhm.
we have solid waste or transfer station, building maintenance, sewer, all those
Mhm.
different functions. I'm able to kind of see what's going on amongst those different units.
Yes.
And offer, the mechanic maybe could help out here or help out there,
Right.
or highway can help here or help there. So it's good to be able to have an oversight over all those functions.
Very
and
cool.
Try to coordinate things better.
And that a little of that overlap, I think you spoke in previous meetings that you and I have had. Your on-site mechanic here helps with some of the vehicle maintenance for the other fleets with fire and police. Is that correct?
Well, that's one of the new things we changed with the fleet maintenance or fleet mechanics.
Yep.
Is that they have a direct responsibility for all town equipment,
Nice.
vehicles.
So keeping it
So
local.
our fleet
keep it
mechanic
in-house.
is meeting with all the departments and finding out their needs and offering his assistance, and he's been doing a great job at it.
Very nice. Very nice.
That includes Parks and Rec too. So they're
Oh right, yeah,
services
they
that-
have their own
they
fleet.
have their stuff too.
Yeah, and with Kelly coming into her new position, taking over for Chris Wilkins, I actually have not had a chance to speak with her. Parks and Rec hasn't really been on my radar for these meetings, but you're right. There's a lot that goes on with those mowers, small engines, larger engines. So certainly having a fleet mechanic is going to help keep that bottom line down.
we got a little sidetracked, but the burn pit,
Oh, yeah,
the burn
sorry,
pit closure. No, that's okay. It's
part
good.
2, right?
It's all good knowledge. It's good to have.
Yeah,
Yes.
the burn pit, I've been helping out Brian with it for a while, not because I've been overseeing transfer station, but because of my engineering background and helping out with the town projects. There was a new roadway put through that area by LIDC as part of an industrial development
Right.
proposal they're working on out there, and so that new roadway affected the operation of the transfer station and the burn pit in particular. And so the goal is to reconfigure that area, and some of the grading of that work has already been done by the contractor that did the road work.
Okay.
So the goal is to reconfigure that area for the glass pile and for the brush and to the burn pit. The goal is to eliminate the burn pit altogether and switch to a mulching operation
Okay.
for wood waste.
Nice. Nice.
But that means we need to be able to store more wood waste
Right.
out there, and to be able to have that to the point when we can bring a grinder in that makes sense for an efficiency
Exactly.
perspective.
Exactly.
So yeah, my job is going to be to help go through those steps to get that burn pit eliminated. It requires some environmental steps with DES to get that done, and then to come up with kind of a new site layout for that area. We want to put in some fencing to secure it. We've got a new road that's not being used yet, but once that starts to become used, we want to have a little bit more of a secured area there for the glass pile and for.
See, we don't want cars driving through glass piles or burn pits. That's definitely a possibility.
Trying to keep them
Right.
out of sight.
There's an unsightly component to it. If
so
so, you got
privacy
some
fencing.
screening. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it all makes sense.
So that'll all be part of that project.
Great. And that's Article 16. It's $45,000 from taxation with a tax impact of 0.60 cents on every thousand. But that is through the transfer station. Public Works, 11, 12, 14, 21, and 22. Doug, thank you again for joining us as we review through the warrant articles that you're presented this year. And here's to a great 2021. A little less restrictions, hopefully, right?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you.
Here. Thank you.
All right, well, with me now is the new finance director, Lori Bolosevich. We're here at the town offices in Littleton. And Lori, brand new to the role here, taking over for Karen, a longtime finance director.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little of your experience in the past and what brings you here to this role in Littleton?
Sure. Previously, I was the finance director for the town of Harvard, Massachusetts. And before that, the town accountant for Pepperell, Massachusetts. Most of my experience is in the state of Massachusetts, so coming to New Hampshire is a learning curve for me. And I lived in New Hampshire, but always worked in Massachusetts. So, but I'm getting the laws down, and learning that things are basically the same, but just a little different how they handle things.
The math is the same.
Exactly.
It's the follow through
Yes.
and checks and balances that are a little different. So,
Yes.
well, we're pleased to have you here. We're excited at the new opportunity.
Thank you.
In looking at Article 5, which is the budget this year, we have a proposed operating budget for 2021 of $10,285,473, and that proposed operating revenue, the proposed operating revenue on that budget is $7.8 million to offset a lot of that,
Right.
bringing the tax impact to 3.211 cents per thousand. And it's an estimated $2.4 million from taxation.
That's right.
And then the default, should Article 5 fail, we would roll back to the 2020 budget, which was $10,022,432, roughly a 3.040 cents per thousand from taxation. And looking across the board, a lot of increases. Cleaning services, that was a big one. I mean, COVID really hit a lot of the departments along the way, but elections, legal, and then a lot of the infrastructure to handle a lot of the new processes that COVID brought to the table. Yep. Were there other increases that you saw that could stand out? I mean, legal, welfare.
Yeah.
There's a lot there.
I think the one that stands out the most is the welfare assistance.
Yep.
It's been quite significant in last year in 2020, and so far in 2021 already has been quite a lot. So I just finished filling out a survey for the New Hampshire Municipal Organization to seek more COVID funds from the state, so they can see that the need is there, that cities and towns have, still have these needs financially, and you want to help people and you need to help people.
Right.
So.
And the grants are helpful, but in some ways it's not enough. It falls on the town to do what it can to support its citizens in their time of need like this. So
absolutely.
It can become burdensome on levels. So it's good to know there's more grants still available, and Concord and Governor Sununu are constantly looking to help where they can.
Yes.
But there is that notable increase on our line items. But to offset some of those, there are decreases as well. The Trans-Canada settlement, the final payment was paid in 2020, so that is no longer on the line items. There's some decreases across the board in various areas for NHRS benefits, dispatch services, and I talked at length with the department heads about the vehicle maintenance as well. I'm sure that has helped in a lot of ways.
Right.
So, other decreases that you are aware of that aren't on my list here? Or?
I think one of the ones is the police cruisers, because they have moved them out and they've set up a capital reserve fund for police cruisers now, so that it doesn't impact the budget so much every 3 years. It's more of a steady, you can just take it out of the capital reserve as needed.
Certainly. And Chief Smith talked about that. We don't like to see a spike, as he had mentioned.
Exactly.
If we can account for that money each year, year over year, it's much easier to be fiscally responsible to allocate for those funds. And speaking with Doug, and he's got a projection for the next 10 years of when those trucks are going to come out of service, which is, it's remarkable to think the projections that are there, so that they can allocate and move those funds as needed to prepare. So you're not hitting with a ginormous spike. Obviously, circumstances, if a tree falls in a truck or something, an act of God, we can't deal with those. But your general wear and tear, they've projected out till 2029.
The town has a nice capital plan that the select board has approved, I believe, and so it's important to stick to it, because if you skip it a year or two, then you get behind, and it's very hard to catch up again. So it is important to support that plan and to stick by it, and it will keep your equipment, just more manageable and less maintenance required, things like that. So it's important. So.
Nice. Now, before we move to the next one, was there anything else in Article 5 or notable mentions from the budget that you'd like to present or discuss?
No, I guess point out to the listeners that on the town's website, they can actually go to the website under departments and then the town manager page, and they can find the 2021 draft, default, and proposed budgets on the left-hand side.
Excellent.
And that gives you all the detail, and it'll show, it was actually Karen's last budget she did. I went to the budget committee meeting on December 29th, and before I actually started here on January 4th, but I just wanted to get a feel for how things went, and they reviewed it, had already reviewed the budget itself at previous meetings, so we just went over articles there, but everything was pretty much set before I got here, so haven't really been into the details of the budget as much.
Right, certainly.
But just certainly.
So, just starting right at the end of the process. We don't want to put you on the hook
and
for
just reporting it to the DRA and learning the portal and all that.
This is the information that's been provided to me.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, moving forward, with the years of experience that you've had in Massachusetts, and no newcomer to numbers in and of themselves or the budgetary process.
Right.
I think that it's going to make, you'll make quick sense of the process.
Yes.
So the location on the website again, that's townoflittleton.org, and then under departments and town manager. And on the right-hand side of the page, you'll be able to see.
Left-hand side.
I'm sorry. Yes, the left-hand side. So my right, your left.
There you go.
Moving on, the collective bargaining agreement, Article 17, AFSCME, and there's a vote to approve the costs included in that MOA that has been voted on and approved by the Select Board. And they reached that between the Select Board and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 93, Local 1348. And it's a $15,000 raised from taxation with a tax impact of 0.20 cents on the thousand. Tell me a little bit about your understanding of the AFSCME and how that works from 2020 and 2021 with those increases.
Right. This is an agreement that has already been approved and agreed by the select board and approved at town meeting last year. But this particular article is about an amendment to that agreement to add a position. It's the fleet mechanic position.
Right.
And so those are estimated costs and that will come from taxation and just recording what will cost in 2020 and what we're estimating for 2021.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
And we had a chance to talk with Doug about the fleet mechanic and the importance
Yeah.
of that role to help keep some of those general maintenance costs down. And
Absolutely.
that individual, though employed under Public Works, is servicing vehicles from all the fleets. So,
Right.
so Parks and Rec trucks, and I believe he even said vehicle small engines and mowers.
Yeah.
Across the trucks and what he or she can do for the actual cruisers,
Right.
the fire trucks, the sweepers, and the stuff that's going on. So it's going to be a critical position
Yes.
to help keep that ongoing maintenance down.
Absolutely.
The general
Very
service
important.
maintenance. Excellent. Well, I know that there's a lot that Karen generally gives as far as for this portion of the video, but being new to the role itself and still familiarizing yourself with New Hampshire and the statutes and our budget here in Littleton, we're not going to pressure you or put you on the spot any further for any of the other articles. But I do want to thank you, Lori, for sharing the information that we have here. Was
Okay.
there anything else that you wanted to share that was on your list that you wanted to bring up to the viewers?
Sure. I don't know if anyone spoke yet about the parking meter revolving fund.
We did, yeah.
Okay,
I
good.
spoke at length with Chief Smith on that.
Okay,
but
great.
certainly, if you wanted to elaborate a little on that.
Just to explain that they've done it previously for the transfer station and the ambulance. Both used to be special revenue funds, and they've been changed over to revolving funds.
Right.
So the articles may seem a little
6,
confusing.
7, and 8.
Yes.
Yes.
But
and he talked about those.
good.
Yeah, and it's good to see that the rather than, as he said, voting on a handful of them all at once, to roll them out a little at a time. So you said that the Parks and Rec has already moved one into a revolving fund.
Yeah, they've always been revolving.
They've always been revolving.
Transfer station
Okay,
and
yep.
ambulance.
And ambulance.
Those
okay.
are the two recent ones.
Right, and then this year will be
This
the
will be
parking meter
parking
special
meter.
fund.
Yeah.
And then, and that's from
That should
DRA
clean it up.
that came down, right? They said
Well,
that-
it's a change that they made available, I guess, within the last few years. So it's a good change. Instead of voting it every year, telling them what they can spend, you just establish those rules at the beginning when you set the fund up, what revenues go in, what expenses can go out, and then you don't have to keep voting it every year, and they have to abide by those rules that you set.
Right.
And that's what
And-
this does.
And as I said previously, Chief Smith was very specific about how it's very compartmentalized, how those funds can be spent. So the ones that are set aside for the part-time officers, that doesn't go to tires. that
Right.
goes to outfitting and servicing and training those part-time officers and make sure that they have the equipment and the training that they need to
Right.
do their service. So
Yep.
excellent, excellent.
And probably just briefly on Article 10 for the water and light, I just wanted to explain that it's, would be set up as an accounting feature. It's called an enterprise fund, and it would be very much like the sewer enterprise fund that we have.
Right.
And so it really would be business as usual. It really wouldn't change the way water and light operates. The budget would be voted every year at town meeting like sewer is, just one amount. And then the revenues and expenses stay with the enterprise fund. They're totally separate from the general fund. They never get mixed. And any excess fund balance in an enterprise fund stays with that enterprise fund. So, I don't think people should be afraid of, supporting this because it's a good thing.
Right.
It's,
I know that there was a handful of questions asked at deliberative session in and around how it came up, and Skylar Sweet chose to decline comment at that time, and then Andrew did clarify a few things just so that I don't think that there's necessarily bad blood or animosity amongst the two. It's like you said, it's about establishing the fund and maintaining it appropriately. and moving forward in the best interest of the citizens,
Yeah.
so that water and light can exist as it needs to.
Yeah, because it's kind of an accounting thing is all it is, and the DRA wants the accounting done
Right.
correctly and voted correctly, but everybody's happy with how things are functioning and working and running, so nobody wants to upset the apple cart with
Yeah.
that, just keep it going business as usual, and we'll just get the accounting, according to how DRA would want it. But the funds never get mixed. General fund stays separate, enterprise funds stay separate, it never gets mixed.
Right. And that's a good point to bring up,
Yeah.
to make sure that
I just want to make
there's
sure
no
people know
commingle.
that.
People are aware
Absolutely.
that there is a clear line
Yep.
between the two. So
Yeah.
I thank you for bringing that up.
Sure.
Anything else that you want to share, Lori?
No, I think that's good.
Excellent. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much. And
Next
the
year
town
will
of
be
Littleton-
different.
Yeah, next year we'll have a lot more.
Yes.
But we welcome you to the role, and we're glad to have you. Thank you.
Thank you
And
very
thank
much.
you for sharing today with us.
Okay, thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.